Okay. Okay. Recording now. Okay, adoption of the minutes from the May, oh wow, it's been since May, May 11th meeting.
Yeah, I was looking at that too.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of workshops,
That's right.
just to be clear.
Any comments on the minutes? No? Okay. I move to adopt the minutes of the May 11th CEDC meeting. Any seconders? Alison, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay, Community Economic Development Plan. Basically, we're talking about council approval here, so that's Maureen and or Alison.
I could speak to it initially. What you have in the agenda package is a report that went to council and their resolution that came from that. So the upshot is that as we recommended, council will not formally adopt the Community Economic Development Plan Engagement and Strategy Report at this time, and that council approve in principle the approach to implementation outlined in the report that we submitted. So we have challenges with the report. Council recognized that and essentially accepted the recommendation from this committee.
Yeah, I don't think, as my recollection, that there were any dissenting voices that we shouldn't do what we've recommended. So there seemed to be unanimous approval to that.
So the
No questions asked either, I don't think, in the discussion. So
no, it was pretty much accepted. So the report outlines what we have been talking about in this committee, the major areas and what was identified in the report as a next step, and sort of where we've landed with each of those, and in terms of what might be a feasible next step, and also the person or persons within the committee who's responsible for taking the lead on each of the sectors. Everybody remember all this? It does seem like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just means that they don't formally accept the report or adopt the report.
we're not going forward with the actions as outlined in the report.
Right. Okay.
Specifically, we're going forward with, they've received the report,
Right.
but now which they did a number of meetings ago. And now this is, they've agreed that what we've laid out in that report of July 11th, which was a result of a meeting, one of our workshops, I think, is this is what they, but yes, go ahead with that.
Okay.
So it's an expression of support
Yeah.
for the approach that we've proposed.
Right. Okay. Okay. Anything more to be said about that then? Just that that's what's happened and onwards.
Yeah, it kind of, we'll do the digital economy next, and then the housing, and then next step. So we'll probably circle back to this discussion a little bit as far as the next
Okay.
sectors.
Okay, Kiersten. Remote workers engagement.
Yeah, so just to give an update, we did do a workshop before we all broke for the summer, and we did have a handful of residents who are remote workers join our conversation, and it was really just to open up a dialogue in terms of sharing information on our report, that we were sort of picking out some of the themes that we thought, would maybe be really sustainable on the island. And one of them being, a remote work venue, like a WeWork station, a place where remote workers could go to meet, to work together, where there could be a cross-pollination of ideas, where maybe we would do presentations to help remote workers to share information. And, generally speaking, I would say with that workshop, the comments were favorable, that there seemed to be interest in creating that sort of venue on Bowen Island. What we did take away, though, is because this a remote working venue could do so much, we thought that maybe the next step is maybe putting together a survey based on some of the discussion points that were brought forth in that work group, as well as some thoughts that had been happening internally with our committee, putting that survey together, and then writing an article for the Undercurrent. Just really inviting people on Bowen Island, if you're working remotely 1 day a week or 5 days a week, if you have your business on island, or if your business is maybe on the mainland, but you do work remotely, or you have staff working remotely, what would be your interest in having a remote working venue on Bowen Island? And for us to maybe talk about that in the Undercurrent, that Bowen Island could be the best place to live as a remote worker, but really to tie it with the survey, inviting those on Bowen Island who do work remotely to fill out the survey, to give us some feedback in terms of the level of interest. And we felt like we really need to do that just to see, is it really just a handful of people who feel passionate about it? Could we really help create a business case? And I think we've talked about, this isn't something that the municipality itself would own and run, but it would be another initiative, but that the Economic Development Committee can at least start to sort of tease out what the demand is, what the services would be of most interest, and at least try to get that information a little bit more together to see if this is a viable option or not. I have to admit, I was away for work at local conferences at the beginning of September, and then I did a last minute decision to take off for holidays for 2 weeks, and but in that time did draft an article for the Undercurrent. Again, something just more short to the point that we would then include with the survey. And I think sort of that's where we're at now, is just looking at that next step.
So creating the survey is the next step, essentially. And then once that's ready, put an article in the Undercurrent. Thank you very much. It was a great article that you drafted. And with a link to the survey, inviting people to respond. Yeah. I think there's a lot more people out there than we were able to reach the first time around for the workshop.
Well, exactly. And I think we said, okay, well, how else can we reach out to people? And so I think that's where we landed, is doing an article for the Undercurrent. And Steph, I think a lot of your notes that you were taking, we figured that would be basically the guts of the survey, and again, we just wanted probably to make it short and to the point. But really start the thoughts flowing, and really to see, is there a real demand?
And what kind of services too, I would think, whether we talked a little bit about whether there should be a integrated office services sort of component, or.
Well, that's it, because we kind of started with, it could be a support for you, like administrative support, as well as meeting other people, that cross-pollination of ideas, creating some momentum. But then there was also, what we also talked about was, well, maybe we would add childcare to it. Like if it was at a location near a big school, then maybe we could have a park monitor kind of keeping an eye on the kids for a couple of hours after school, while still some people, instead of working at home, would actually go to that remote workstation. Or maybe we'd have a dog walker, go to work, but actually have a dog walker there to walk your dog and other dogs. And, you know, it could really be a great platform just for community. But again, I think the fear is we don't want to boil the ocean. And, you know, if you start to layer on all these different things and you're looking maybe at a bigger venue or a more robust service. And I think what we're trying to do is just answer the question, is there really a demand? Is it just a dozen people? Is it 200 people? Like, what does that look like in terms of the number of people on Bowen who would be willing to pay to be a member of a remote working office? And if you were to pay, then where would you see that value? Like, you know, what services would you want to see? And it could just be something very simple, like, I just want to work in an office where there's coffee and other people to work with and, you know, a photocopier. I don't know. So, well, I think that's what we're just hoping to figure out with the survey.
And then I think the key thing is, and how do we have some information, and then what, you know?
Well, and then, well, and, you know, and then sharing that information, maybe doing a report, and maybe the municipality wants to give us some ideas on locations, you know, locations from a zoning perspective that it works, or from an existing real estate perspective. But, you know, I do think ultimately this would be hand off to somebody. You know, if we did do a report, then it would be up to somebody then to say, this is a good start to a business case, and I'd like to pursue this business. Like, at the end of the day, it would be some sort of a business plan from somebody, and it could be a nonprofit in the end, but it's not something that the municipality would take on.
Alison, do you have a question?
Oh, you're mute.
There I go. Sorry, I've got my morning froggy throat. I guess I should adopt the frog as a mascot. Sort of two questions that are sort of running through my mind, because I do recall some attempts at this being done by private group industry before. Is the library adequate? The room at the library, because it does have, you know, work areas and areas where you could sit and chat, and it's got the photocopier and stuff. Or are they looking for, you know, a place where they could have a private office to have meetings with people? So I think the first step is just to design that survey. And, you know, timing wise, probably wouldn't be going out until November at this point. We're into the middle of October, right? Yeah. And yeah, and a lot of what I heard too at that meeting was a lot of people want something where they can go to in the cove when the power's out, and they can access internet and work there. So that, which often means they head for the library, I guess, or one of the coffee shops. But yeah, I think getting the survey designed, I think, is the first step, and then getting it out there, and then seeing what the demand is or what the wishes are. So I wouldn't, you know, I don't want to maybe do a survey that's too short and sweet and then leave out, but, you know, questions that would be interesting. So maybe you could say, if you're interested in this, please answer the following. If you're not, then go to question 10, sort of thing. Yeah. So
Steph, are you gonna
So Kiersten and I can work on the survey, and then I'm hearing that the team would like to see it, so we can run a draft through the committee.
yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
I wonder if it's worth reaching out to other small communities that have these job share spaces, just to see how they got to their place, how they landed, what the demands are. Just instead of reinventing the wheel, maybe just reach out to a couple of whether they're nonprofit or businesses.
do we know of any?
I do recall from the REAP forum that there was somebody on. Okay, I'll have to check back my notes now. It's been a few years, but there was another community that did it, but I believe it was a private entrepreneur. And
Well, all the ones in Vancouver are privately run.
Yeah.
Right.
Several.
There was a business in Invermere that was ahead of its time, I guess, before COVID, and they didn't make it. They weren't able to survive, unfortunately, because it was a great venue and it had a lot of options in the venue. It wasn't just job share space. They had opportunities for video conferencing and all kinds of things. Anyway, it was unfortunate that they were too far ahead of them of now being people are working remotely.
Yeah. And I think that was one thing that we also raised, like, we don't know if that business would be sustainable with just remote workers on Bowen. But if we did create a space where there was a meeting space, then maybe it would be a workplace retreat, you know, for businesses in town that maybe wanted to go somewhere different for a day to do a one-day workshop. Then, you know, that could be another service that could be offered. So you know, Jamie, to your point, making sure that you've got that meeting, that it enables video capabilities, and but again, you know, we just kind of, I think the purpose of the survey is just really validating the level of interest, and then somebody else could then run with it later. So I think that's sort of out of the report, kind of teasing out these more substantial things we think the Community Economic Development Committee can really deliver on, and then sort of move on to the next task. You know, I think it's good if, as a committee, we really kind of focus on these initiatives, kind of keep them action oriented, deliver it, and then move on to the next one to show that we are kind of supporting things that have been articulated by the business community.
But yes, definitely a scan of other initiatives on other islands would be very good.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll follow up then with Invermere, and if you do your notes, or you can go through your notes, Vaughn, I can
Sure.
follow up.
Okay.
Be interesting to see their business case
Yeah.
and how.
And also what
failed.
happened to them, because that was, you
Yeah.
know, they were running before COVID, and then how they went through COVID, if they're still there, you know?
Yeah, they didn't survive.
No, I
because
mean, this other one that,
before COVID, there wasn't a big demand, and it was a fairly, it was a space that was right in downtown Invermere, so the rent was probably high.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just couldn't make it.
So, and Jamie, sorry.
I was just thinking, I wonder if the example in Squamish would be a little more relevant to Bowen compared to the ones in Vancouver, which and I could reach out to find out more, but it seems like it's thriving, and their model is more than just a co-working place. They actually they invite outsiders to come in and use the space, rented for events. There's video conferencing capabilities. So it's also something to look at.
So
It's called Commons.
It's called Commons.
Yeah.
Yes, was Martin going to look at that then?
Yeah, I can look into that.
I think it might be helpful to have some of this information on hand before you finish up the survey, because then you'll have better questions, informed questions.
that's true.
So the other thing that occurred to me when you were talking about possible space for small conferences and whatever, we have a community center that's being built, and that's one of the possible uses of some or all of those common rooms, is for a conference to be held, to book it and things like that. So, and they're different sizes, so accommodate different numbers of people. So having a conference facility may not be needed or space for conferences, because we've got the community center rooms, and then there's also the Bowen Lodge for that kind of thing as well.
Well, that's back to Chris Corrigan's Villages of Venue idea,
Yeah,
right? Just coordinate all the different resources that exist, and offer that as a package rather than creating a dedicated space that has everything. Yeah. Okay.
I've got a question, maybe possibly for Jamie. Councillor Morse is bringing up the library, the Cove Commons space. And we bump on that quite often. What are the actual terms for that space? So it's not open on Sunday and Monday, for example,
It's the library space.
the Cove Commons.
I'm talking about the room that's right behind the, when you come in the back of the library door there, where the book drop is. It's the room on the left where we had the council strategic planning session. So I don't know what the official name of that room is, but that's the room I'm referring to, and then the little room behind it. So they're administered by the library.
It's the Annie Wood room. It's the Annie Wood Annex.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I've been in there and I've seen people working, they have a couple of areas where you can go and have a private conversation, like a glassed in room, or I think there's a door on a couple of the
Yeah,
rooms.
there's a room behind it.
Yeah. And then the other space, it seems like though everyone's very quiet.
Yeah.
They're working.
It's a library. You're quiet in a library.
Yeah. So that's the one thing, I don't think as a working space, it's maybe a little awkward in terms of, if you want to be doing some business and on the phone talking to people.
Yeah, so it all depends on what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to be talking to people all the time, but if you're doing, research and emailing people and stuff like that, yeah.
Yep.
So Jamie, are people able to rent space out, or is it just sort of open for drop-ins for the public?
I think the annex, like you say, with the library being closed 2 days a week, they do rent out that space. But other than those 2 days of the week, they don't, because they're open for regular hours.
But they may rent out the little room behind.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the library we need to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will try and get some information on that other island that I had heard about. And Martin, you're gonna get some information from Squamish.
Yep.
And maybe Jamie can support me getting information from Invermere.
If I can find the woman that had that business. I'm not sure where she's ended up.
Okay. And
I'll try and dig back through my files to find the couple of times that it was tried here.
perfect. And then Kiersten and I will work on the survey.
Okay.
Kirsten's just put something in the chat.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google, and it sort of listed a number of remote working spaces in the Kootenays. I've actually been to the one in Nelson. It's called the Jam Factory, which is quite funky, but it's a nice article because these are all small rural communities that do have it. So it would be worth it. And again, I don't mind doing that too, just calling and saying, how's business going? How's it going? Who tends to show up? What's working well, what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because maybe it helps us with our survey, but I do see this as being maybe a report coming out of the Community Economic Development Committee to say it was flagged in our survey. This is what we did. This is the information that we gathered. I think at our last workshop, what we talked about was doing the survey and then based on that information, then reconvening and doing another workshop. For those who filled out the survey, but so we'll advertise it again just to report out on the results of the survey and our research, and then I guess take it from there. But,
Maureen,
but
did
in my
you-
mind,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, in my mind, I do see us sort of reporting out so that there's a deliverable from our committee, and then we'll move on from there. Yeah.
Definitely.
I just did a search too. There's actually a place in Gibson's, which might be the most sort of relatable to Bowen. It's called Fuse Community Work Hub.
Where is it, Jody? I recognize the name.
It's in Gibson's on South Fletcher Road.
Okay.
I don't know. This is just from a search, so I haven't even gone to the website or anything, but
Fletcher Road's one of the ones that goes down towards Gibson's. I think I've driven by it.
Maureen, did you have, yeah,
Yeah, there was someone on social media, Facebook, probably a week or two ago, who was actively looking to establish a space. I'll see if I can track that down. I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's fuzzy memory here. He said he had about 10 people who were interested in establishing a co-working space, and he was looking for a location.
oh,
That might have been Brendan from the e-bike.
That's right. That's who it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I haven't talked to him about that or anything, but yes, he was looking for a space for about 10 people. I'm not sure if that was co-working though. That was not necessarily my impression, but.
Okay, I'll see if I can find it. What is Brendan's last name? Do you know?
I almost said Brendan Fraser. So,
I can find his contact.
I think it's Robertson.
Okay, thank you. I guess the point about potential locations, and Kiersten, you mentioned perhaps the municipality could help by identifying suitable spots. Other than the library, I'm not sure, and potentially the community center, I'm not sure where else would have space. Would be
What about the
available.
Bowen Lodge?
The
They don't
Bowen
seem-
Lodge doesn't seem to be particularly active these days.
It's not a noisy. I know they try to avoid raucous late night parties. But no,
I wonder if that would be a permitted use.
it might not be zoned for it, but I can look into that.
Yeah, that would be good.
So many actions from this discussion.
So I just want to add, actually, I just was on the Fuse website, Fuse Hub Work. They've actually got Gibson's, Seashelt, Pender Harbor. And it's actually done by the Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization. So that might be the most likely first contact to sort of get some good info from them.
Okay, that's a good tip. That's great. So, I mean, I don't mind reaching out stuff, like if this is gonna.
The Speedo's a great organization. I don't know who the contact is now. But yeah, Kiersten, if you want to, or if you run out of juice, I can step
Yeah.
in.
No, that's okay. I have the website here, so I'll take a look at it. I have to apologize. It's a working day for me, and I do have to jump to another meeting.
It's
But
great work. Thank you.
Appreciate it sometime. Okay,
Talk to you soon.
bye.
bye. Okay, so that's great. Lots of things to do there. Okay, so next on the agenda is the staff housing solutions survey results and next steps.
I can speak to that initially. I wonder, actually, Steph, could you bring up the presentation from the council meeting?
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can. So if you could just go to the next screen. So this went to council at the end of July, and purposes are stated here. There's a more complete report included in your agenda package, and I'll assume you've either read it or you can go back and read more of the detail. So we wanted to provide, anyway, the direction from council was simply that this, this is when the CED plan went forward. Okay.
Sorry, did I advance too quickly?
No, it's okay. Just go on to the next. So the survey ran from the 16th of June to July the 8th. And I had worked on it. Alison had worked on it. Steph, I can't recall offhand. There may have been others that sort of contributed to it.
Daniel had a swipe.
Daniel had a swipe. Okay. So it was sent out to everyone on our business mailing list, everyone who had a business license, which is over 600 people. And we received 56 responses. So that's a relatively low, I think, response rate. But it seemed from the responses that we probably captured the majority of the major employers on island. And it included 12 questions. They're noted in the report. We wanted to know number of staff who require housing, and we segmented that out by whether they were seasonal employees or year-round employees. We wanted to know what housing type was needed, whether they had employees who were off island. And this was an interesting question, how employers help employees find housing. Their interest in 3 options. One is sort of the matchmaking system that we had talked about in a couple of committees, this committee, the housing committee. A second was purpose-built housing for staff. And I can't remember offhand, I don't have it in front of me, but we'll get to it later, what the third one was. And then the type of business they were engaged in and the impact of housing availability on business. And that too is a really interesting area to look at more closely. So next slide, please. So the only prior research that I was able to find on the needs for the staff housing needs identified in a report that planner Margaret Everly did in 2007. And there is some reference in the Urbanics report, the housing needs assessment. So if you could advance, next slide. So this is the snapshot of who responded. And the business licenses were grouped in terms of accommodation, commercial, contractors, home-based businesses, non-resident businesses, and they don't know what kind of business they are. And they don't know because they're not familiar with the categories, even though they're presented here. So it's noteworthy that about 25% of the survey responses, about 25% of our business licenses are non-resident business. And those 605 business licenses represent over 1,000 people when you include the owners. There are about 520 regular employees and about 310 additional seasonal employees. And keep in mind that these numbers are coming just from those 56 respondents to the survey. So next slide. Okay, so and this was emphasized in the undercurrent article that was produced after this went before council. There was an assumption that in midsummer, pretty well everybody who was a seasonal staff employee would have found a home. But even in midsummer, there were a significant number of seasonal staff who were still seeking housing. And then a couple more key takeaways noted here. If you just want to go on to the next slide, Steph. Just a couple of limitations on the survey, and then that's about it. So again, assuming that you've taken a look at the report, I'm just curious about what your response was. And council decided to receive the results and to forward it here and also onto the Housing Advisory Committee for comment. So what are your questions based on the survey?
Seemed like a very low number of responses to me. A bit concerned about that.
I'm not sure that it is, Vaughn, because how many, most of the people on the business list have, you know, no employees or two or few. How many had more than 5 employees on our business licensing?
Don't know offhand.
Yeah, because I remember going back and looking at the report we'd had on business licenses. And I think, as Maureen said, it picked up most of the major employers.
I wonder if some of the results are due to the timing that the survey went out. Business owners are busy in the summertime and they just probably didn't have time to respond to it, maybe.
Well, the contractors are busy all year.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice to have had a higher level of response, but I think that even with the level of response that we have, what we're seeing is that there remains significant need for some sort of support for staff housing. The picture can only, I think, get more extreme if there were additional responses.
Okay. I think the housing affordability part is really key. So, you know, it always comes back to, you know, it's like I noticed that some of the employers had said that it really helped that the rental building, the new rental building in the Cove went up, and that took some pressure.
Mhm.
But I know the price is there, and they are not necessarily affordable for someone who is making $15 an hour at the general store or the Ruddy, or, you know, considerable numbers of employees don't make very much money there.
Mhm.
And so those types of people would be left out of that. You know, that's not an option for them. So I think, you know, the affordability question is huge for everybody.
Yeah, this survey did not look specifically at affordability. The assumption was affordability would be an issue.
Right.
Yeah. So if you, in the report itself, you know, in response to question 3, how many of your seasonal staff still require housing at July? There were more than 61 people who were identified as being in need. And that's with 53 responses. So
Right.
53 people saying, yeah, I have 61 employees, 60 at least.
Yeah.
We're still looking for a home.
And so what is the next steps with this then? So I don't think it's surprising that, you know, we have the information. We know that there's not enough housing. You gave them some options about what they thought might work, right?
No, I gave them 3 options that they could consider.
Right.
And the one that I missed out was temporary use permits, and that would be related to you know, having a trailer or having an RV. So in terms of next steps, I think there are 2. The first one is to have a discussion with the business owners, you know, to have a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting where we go over this in a bit more detail, and talk with them. In particular, I thought that they were the creative approaches that the business owners came up with on their own, the head leases with people who own big homes and aren't comfortable with renting to an individual, but are happy to enter into a lease with a business owner, and then the business owner brings in potential renters. So a conversation, I think, would be the first step. And then there is some work slated in the winter to look in more detail at the use of temporary use permits for a program along the lines of what we looked at earlier in the summer, to allow for RVs, trailers on a seasonal basis.
Mhm.
I think that's already on Natasha's work plan. So those two things alone are steps forward. There are a few things mentioned in the comments on would you be interested in any of the following. So for example, somebody said the credit union is considering building something, would be interested in partners. That came as news to me.
Right. Yeah,
No.
I noticed that. Yeah.
So maybe finding out if there's any truth in that. I mean, the questions about to what extent the municipality can further a collaborative project of some sort. If you've got half a dozen major employers who have staff shortages and need a sustainable solution, maybe there's some merit in looking at that more closely. But I think that's a step farther down the road. I think the Zoom or the in-person conversation with the employers needs to happen first.
I mean, I would comment that on a higher level, I do think, okay, things like, okay, for seasonal, yes, there might be shorter term, options, but in general, I mean, I understand that I guess just looking at the affordability issues on the island, this is a big part of, the workers are important. There's got to be a place for them to live, right? And this idea that I noticed that one of the candidates in Vancouver running for mayor, Colleen something, is talking about using Vancouver city land to build co-ops, right? That, that all co-ops are, like, to me, like the most brilliant. It's like, if you want to solve the affordability problem, start building affordable housing in a real way. And one of the models that was, I just think, one of the most successful in the last 50 years were the co-ops, and those were a lot of federal money came for that, which has dried up over time, and now all those buildings are at their end of life, basically, right? But she's talking about doing it, the city using their land, building it, getting a mortgage, paying it off with the rents, and those rents are typically, not only do they like provide a really beautiful community sort of feel living, but the rents are actually what you could say affordable for so many people. And I don't know, I know this is kind of a little bit off the topic here, but it's I would love to see the municipality consider something like that.
The municipality there was a call for expressions of interest put out, and the people who could respond included co-ops, and it was distributed fairly broadly. There was no response from co-ops. There was a response from I guess actually I can't say at this point, but it was the expression of interest for the land adjacent to Belterra.
Yes,
Yeah.
but this would be the municipality doing it. It wouldn't be a co-op. A co-op wouldn't exist unless it was built, right? So
Okay, but that requires, if you're more, depending on how big your mortgage is going to be, I think what I would have to check, but for the municipality to borrow money over certain amounts, they have to go for referendum. City of Vancouver has a charter, very different.
Okay, but I'm just saying it's possible, right?
And,
It's
and
po-
we are doing that right now. We're leasing land to Birch
Yeah, and look where, sorry.
for affordable housing and,
Yes, and they're
no.
relying on other money and they're not getting it. And it's been 3 years now in the making and it's nowhere, right? All I'm saying is it's just, it's another thing to, I don't know how,
The likelihood of a referendum for $10 million to build affordable housing on this island at this point is pretty slim. And Birch has been in competition with projects for funding that can deliver many more units. And they have had difficulty, as have many other small communities, in securing funding. Their applications have been well received by BC Housing, but they have not been funded.
okay,
yeah, even CMHC, I mean, that's part of the issue. The province wants a certain number of housing units. And so somebody delivering 400 on the, is a lot more ahead of the game in meeting that quantity number than somebody who's delivering 30. So that's been, I think, part of the issue. And the plug at UBCM by all the small communities was you've got to think about the small communities and, allocate some of the funding to them.
yeah, yeah.
Not,
Yeah, because it has the same, it's relative impact, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's
Martin?
relative impact to the community, but not meeting the target of the certain 1,400 units. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Martin?
Yeah, but my thought is more about existing housing. So I didn't want to interrupt your discussion on new constructions. I don't know if
Oh, carry on.
Go ahead.
so. A lot of the comments and responses that I'm seeing in the report, and I'm going actually to a conversation that I had with Maureen, relates to this idea of separating the marketplace for business-related rentals from tourism and other rentals. Meaning, in a conventional marketplace like Airbnb, the connection is made only between the renter and the landlord. But we are talking about some ideas here where the connection is multi-party between landlord, business, and renter. And there are multiple benefits that we could go into that only exist in when you combine these three. That might make it attractive for all three parties. So you can almost imagine something like a platform or multiple ways of multiple processes of connecting these three parties together. And I have some more thoughts on that, but maybe I'll just end it there.
Okay.
Well, one of the other thoughts that I've had is, if there's development requests coming forward that involve a variety of, rental housing, smaller lots, all that kind of thing, rather than your standard single family houses on larger lots, but fast track those that are going to meet our objectives of the diversity of providing the rental housing and and that kind of thing. So we can encourage by helping speed up the process too.
One of the things that will go before the next council is recommendations for the creation of a cluster housing category. And that would enable easier development of a larger lot with 5, 10 small homes on it. So no change in the overall square footage on the lot, but just smaller homes. And those might be quite helpful to meet staff needs, but also helpful to meet the needs of people who live on island year round. Because I mean, this report looked not only at seasonal workers, but staff
Full time, year round. Yeah.
Jody, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I've brought this up before, but I think there was a report which I want to ask about too, or looked at Hewlett, because I've always thought, well, Birch is waiting for funding. We've got municipal land sitting there. What about putting temporary homes, mobile homes on there so that people can live until the land's developed? But Maureen, correct me if I'm wrong. You looked at Hewlett, and because I feel like I saw this in a council meeting.
Daniel did.
Daniel looked at Hewlett, and they did that, but there wasn't a big uptake to it. Or correct me. I mean, just remind me of the results of that.
Yeah, that's the temporary use permit option. Natasha actually looked into that, one of the other planners. She looked into it in some detail. It was deemed to be a mixed success, and some of that had to do with the pace of implementation from announcing to actually the closing date for applications was a very short period. It was something like 6 weeks, and there was a what was considered to be a high application cost. So I think, off the top of my head, I think there ended up being something like 13 people who applied, but only 3 or 4 who actually went through with it. All those numbers need to be checked, but it was a mixed success. There were some recommendations that the Ucluelet people passed on to Natasha for when she's looking at its potential on Bowen Island, and sort of getting an early start in the year, so that there could be a better understanding in the community if we actually go ahead with allowing this would be really important. The issue of municipal land is an interesting one in that if you actually look at the municipal land, we don't have a lot of space that is suitable for putting a trailer on or a number of trailers on. The only place, when we were looking at TUPs for the workers who are working on the Tunstall Bay Reservoir, the only space that was deemed suitable was adjacent to the water treatment plant, and that was for, I think, 2 trailers. So trailers need a lot of flat land, and you're probably more likely to find flat land that would be suitable for a trailer on a private lot than on a municipal land.
Mhm.
Well, I did have a conversation with somebody who does have like Mid-Island, Harding Road or whatever.
Yeah.
And they would consider doing that. So I don't know, exploring that avenue a bit more seems like a really reasonable thing to do, sensible thing to do that might help. People can buy a little mobile home and put it on there, and it just needs, I guess, septic, and I mean, I don't know, but worthwhile pursuing, I think.
Well, there isn't a lack of desire to pursue, and out of all the discussion, it's very clear if anybody wants to come forward with a temporary use permit application to do that sort of thing, they're welcome to do so. And I think Daniel was going to sort of look at, having a bit of or Natasha, a checklist of what they would need to do. But we're not discouraging people applying for that. It's just, Hewlett said the effort to do the sort of group thing wasn't worth it, but they're still encouraging temporary use permit applications, and we are too.
So that could occur at any time if the fellow on Harding Road wanted to make an application.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments about the about the survey and going forward?
I think the impacts on the business owners are quite serious, just in terms of morale and potential for expansion, so forth.
Mhm.
Sorry, Martin, I cut you off there.
No, that's fine. Unless we're short on time, there was one scenario that I wanted to maybe run by you. I'm curious if it's a very specific scenario to get your feedback on what it makes you think of. So imagine if I am, imagine a worker going to a platform, and when they look up potential accommodations, it's not something they can rent, but there's a drop down where they have to select the business which is associated with their rental. And then if I'm let's say the landlord, when I get their request, there's an automatic process for which the business confirms with me that this is their employee. So this kind of tripartite linking happening, because I might be more willing to rent to somebody who actually works for a Bohemian business, much more actually willing, if I think about me personally, than just for tourism purposes. Because I'm thinking of that scenario that you mentioned with the landowner seeking a temporary use permit. I may not be incentivized as a landlord to do that if I'm not if I don't have some kind of, not certainty, but if I knew there was a marketplace where there's already an alignment between businesses and potential workers to come and live in that trailer, I wouldn't be going through the hassle of the application. So it's everything. All of these thoughts to me just keep pointing to an information meeting place between these three parties, which is a little bit different from ad hoc projects that are fragmented.
It's sort of moments like this when I miss having a business association on Bowen.
Yeah.
And I know we've had how many attempts in the past that have had some duration, but haven't carried on in the long term. I mean, maybe as part of a Zoom or in-person discussion with the business owners, we could bring up some of these, specific ideas, which I think they would benefit from. I know that there have been suggestions. Why doesn't the municipality do this? And it's a capacity issue, and direct assistance to businesses. We just have to be cautious about how we handle that, which should not stop us from pursuing some of these ideas.
Great, okay.
So for, are we agreeing that the next step would be to have a discussion with business owners?
Is it business owners or the survey respondents?
I personally, I think business owners, if somebody filled in the survey, great. If they didn't fill in the survey, that just makes the conversation that much richer.
Yeah, okay, good.
And also, we don't know who filled in the survey.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, we don't. Right.
We did not ask them for that information.
So is there an action there? Would you like me to start that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused about talking to business owners, what exactly that means or how that would work.
Share the results of the survey?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and to get their feedback on it.
And delve into some of the issues?
Hey folks, it's Rod here. I've
Great,
been
bye.
listening in the background.
Hi, Rod.
Hey, I just wanted to offer one thought, and what it seems to me that we're arriving at is that the missing link is essentially a marketing effort that potential property owners with potential rentals would be aligned or put in touch with businesses that need employee accommodation. So, you know, and that would be not supporting any specific business. So maybe that's a direction that we could go if we want to reach out to business owners, is just say, you know, would you be interested in a coordination or participating in, maybe funding, you know, an effort that is a marketing approach to essentially marketing your employees' need for accommodation to homeowners.
I guess I kind of wonder where, you know, if there are these kinds of accommodations available, and a platform like that would help incentivize people to hire, rent to some workers. I'm not sure why they aren't already. Do you know what I mean? Like, where is this supply going to come from?
Well, I'm thinking of one example. Let's say I have a spare, I don't know, detached, I have a place to rent. How would I be, if I wanted to do it right now to a worker of a business? I have no way of doing that. I mean, I could put it on Airbnb and then question everyone, are you coming to work on Bowen or something like that? But there's no way for me to do it directly, to make sure that I'm only renting to people who actually have a short-term living arrangement on Bowen, not just in and out.
Oh, so you're talking about short term.
Well, for a worker, it's not just for a weekend, right? I mean, even if it's for a weekend, it's still attached to a business on the island. I don't have right now, as a potential landlord, I don't have a way of renting to non-tourists.
Well, you do. We have a Facebook page, and most people just post their suites for rent there. And people also post, if, for instance, if they are renters, what they are looking for.
That assumes that everybody goes to the Facebook page, right? And it's not really a searchable marketplace. A post, you'll get lost after many other posts. I mean, it's really not the same as something that matches up directly, supply and demand.
Right.
And you don't necessarily want to post availability, and how do you screen, you know, who's
Yeah.
coming with, are they an employee or?
Right.
So.
But to sort of echo Vaughn's comment, I do think a lot of this is happening already organically. You know, Glenn at the pub, I think, is extremely active doing that. I myself, I mean, I can't afford to live here anymore. So during the summer, I talked to a restaurant person who needed a place. I offered a room. So, I mean, it is happening. I get, through the visitor center, I get workers that are looking for longer term accommodation. They're coming for construction, so I try to connect them. So, I mean, it is already happening organically. I'm just not sure. I understand the concept of starting a new platform and stuff like that, but I think the conversation needs to happen with the business owners to see, you know, okay, what is it you need? What would help?
Yeah. Well, it's something else to just look, as you said, Maureen, like hold this meeting and look and just delve a bit further into ideas and needs and that kind of thing, and then go from there, right?
Yeah, well, even, you know, diving into the, you know, the three areas, now that I remember them, you know, the matchmaking, which is what Martin is talking about, in electronic form, and the TUPs, you know, even confirming for homeowners that, you know, they can apply for a TUP, and you know, it'll get assessed, and then seeing what's going on with, you know, the potential for, you know, a collaborative project, you know, and finding out if the credit union actually is considering something. No, okay.
So the action step is to do to have a meeting to
Yeah.
discuss the survey with business owners.
So business owners, not matchmaking, not homeowners, just.
Well, all those things would come up
This first step.
as
Yeah,
part
okay.
of the discussion.
Yeah, it's the business zone.
Review
Okay,
the
and I do
survey
have
and
a couple of
possible
names
solutions.
of who did the survey. Can I just clarify about the first credit union? There's no intention to build. There's just a they're generating ideas. They're very keen to be part of the solution, partly for their own employees.
Yeah.
There's a hiring challenges based on accommodation happening within that location. So they're very open and anxious to be part of solutions, but I've not heard anything about going to build something.
I think they would fund a co-op.
Well, they
Provide
fund
the
anything,
mortgage.
but they you can get a mortgage for anything. But they'd be open to I'm sure innovative conversations. But I could even follow up on that. Okay.
I guess what I'm hearing from people who are building right now are some of the things that were identified in the report. The cost of transporting materials. 30% surcharge essentially to get things over here. Hiring a contractor from off island who is working 8 hours, but you have to pay them for 11 because of the weights for the ferries. Construction mortgages at 8%. The circumstances have really materially worsened in the last couple of years and made it difficult. So I mean that they build a co-op, get money from the federal government. Yeah, there is slated to be a significant amount of money available. There's a housing accelerator fund that's supposed to be coming on stream or is on stream at this point. There's supposed to be additional monies coming through the community housing fund, but that's probably a year to 18 months away. So some of the short-term solutions need to just be considered really carefully in terms of meeting needs and addressing the long-term issues through things like non-market housing, co-op housing, and so forth.
Yeah. I wonder if the public are fully aware that a TUP is possible right now.
It's been stated in council meetings. I mean, there's also a bit of a backlash against temporary use permits.
Yes.
As well. So, the person who is going to propose to house on their private land really needs to make sure that their neighbors are on board.
We could certainly, put something out maybe in the news and know what's the island page or not, that there's, temporary use permits are just what a temporary use permit is and sort of things you could use it for. Because there has been a fair amount of discussion about them recently.
I think that would be useful. Yeah.
One of the other things I heard the other day, I think at the playground opening from somebody who's in one of the real estate developers in town that does large units, the lenders now, if we're talking about purchasing, so diverse housing and affordable, they're wanting to have, they're not they're wanting pre-sales done of the units so that they know that there's going to be, the mortgage is going to be able to be serviced. So that the lending market's changing too and requiring different things. So it's a bit of uncertain times too, I think, right now.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's move on. Next item on the agenda, other CED plan elements, discuss possible next steps. So we're
Do you
looking,
want to look at other sectors, or we're good with the activity happening on these last two sectors for now? I think maybe there's a lot on our plate now.
sorry.
I think the idea was that we're covering from the list. We have housing and the digital economy.
Right.
Some good activity on that.
Yep.
Do we want to look at other sectors, or?
I don't think right now. No,
Yeah,
I think
that's
this
what I'm
is
thinking
enough.
as well.
Yeah.
I should just mention that Rod and I have talked about the industrial,
Mhm.
and we had tentatively talked about a meeting with contractors, but I don't think that I'm not sure if that makes sense at this point. Rod, did you have any thoughts on that? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I haven't had any further thoughts other than I think it's still the right thing to do would be to follow up with people who either might be interested in actually, setting up shop, and people who have been involved in industrial lands already, and I think that's the first step for sure.
Well, I guess the other is we've already got lot 1 zoned for light industrial. So I guess the question would be why hasn't anybody picked up on any of that?
Mm-hmm.
It would have, I guess, to sell off pieces of it, it would have to be subdivided, but we did that with lot 3. So yeah. So that's just something to follow up on as part of that, I think.
Yeah, because the building center did identify at one point that they would expand if they could, but they couldn't, right? There was private land around them, not zoned.
Well, I think they fully utilized their site. There's no more room to be used
No,
there.
that's right.
Yeah.
So if
I
there's a
don't know.
business model, to provide more contractor working area and storage and the things that they said that they are short on and have huge demand for, yeah, where are they in that, right? If there's another space available.
But we've zoned lot 1 light industrial, so.
Yeah, but can they?
Are they wanting ready done space that they can just already have the driveway and everything in, like the building center had, and take a corner off?
Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, a question.
But I'm just saying, yeah, I think very useful, as you mentioned, just to follow up with these people and get into more detail of what's why there's no initiatives, right? Yeah. Okay.
Before we move on, maybe from the CED.
Yep.
So there's one topic that I wanted to bring up that relates actually to everything we've been talking about in regards to a Bowen app, generic platform for connecting supply and demand on any kind of any type. And I was wondering because I have something specific to present on a possibility for doing this on a community grassroots level. And I don't know if that will be possible at a future meeting or something like that.
Sure. Yes.
So maybe if we can put that on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Sure. So what, like 30 minutes presentation and question answer?
That would be great. Yeah.
And I'm going to call it a
Supply demand platform local supply demand networking platform.
Okay. Exciting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go grab another cup of coffee.
Well, that's okay, because we're just moving on to the budget now.
We definitely need Alison around if we're talking about budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just lost our accountant. Maybe I can talk.
Are you going to put something on the screen?
Yeah, I'm
or-
pulling it up, and but
Okay.
just while I'm doing that, Vaughn, if we can have a little space to incorporate shop local in this discussion, please.
Okay.
Jody and I both have thoughts or questions.
But we have a new business category. Can we put it there, or
Oh, okay,
is that what you want? Or
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back, no coffee.
Oh, I've got 2 cups. Wish I could share with you. Okay, let me just.
So we've got 9,000 unspent. Is that the result of this?
Yes.
Which, given, I guess, COVID and Zoom meetings and everything else, is not.
Yeah, so well, actually, this is it looks like
You're gonna spend more on the buy local though, right?
well, that's what I was getting to. Last the buy local campaign is normally sort of November to March. And so last year, the Undercurrent did quite a robust campaign themselves. So we would have been virtually duplicating what they were doing on a different page of their publication. So we didn't end up spending that money from January to March on the Undercurrent ads. That's what's happening there.
So you're anticipating they'll do the same thing this November and December, so we won't.
I need to touch base with them and find, I mean, I think it was fantastic that they did that. So it would mean that we could use our resources elsewhere, or yeah, I will touch base with them and find out what their plan is.
and will the neighborhood guide still be spent this year?
The what?
The neighborhood guide,
The welcome neighbor guy.
welcome
Okay.
neighborhood guide.
Yeah,
The-
and I am not sure at this point. This thing called an election got in the way
Yeah.
of doing any work over the last few months or so.
So this needs to be updated, correct?
It's not welcome neighborhood guide, it's
I know, I just corrected it. I think that was a really cute mistake. Welcome neighbor,
yeah.
but the work involved here is it that's like staff updates, or is it an overhaul?
It's an overhaul and printing costs.
Okay,
And an update, I mean, it doesn't need a total major rewrite, it just needs things updated in it. Yeah, and the profile,
Right.
we didn't budget anything for that. Have we got all the census data yet?
I don't think so. I think there's still one more that comes out in November.
So that'll be a 2023 project.
so the discussion with businesses regarding housing, we can use from this category, the implementation
Yeah,
of the plan. That'll take some funds out of there.
so we've only
And
spent,
the buy local will do something to the end of year this year, hopefully with that. Mhm.
Rod, do you know if the REAP forum We'll be charging participant fees.
When is it?
It's in November. It's
Oh, because I thought it was in October normally, so.
yeah, so they switched things around and they've let me think. So oh yeah, November 18th and 19th, there's 2 half-day online forums basically.
I think that's a good move because they had originally scheduled it for voting day.
Yeah, and then they're going to do next year, they're going to do the in-person I forget where. Rod, are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening. I think that they were talking about doing it on Gabriola.
Yes.
Nice.
For 2023.
But do
Yeah.
you know, Rod, if they're going to be charging for people to participate? in
Off the
these
top
Zoom?
of my head, I don't know. It's always been the objective to keep the fees really low
Yeah.
to not, have barrier to participation.
Yeah.
And so I think for the online forum, there was always a charge for the forum, but it would be
Small.
the last online forum I think was $35 per participant.
Yeah, I'm thinking something like 25 to 50 range was what was, I can't
Right.
remember how much it
Yeah.
paid.
Well,
Yeah,
because I think, we want to encourage people to participate. I guess it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. It
absolutely.
doesn't affect our
I think
budget. We can-
if we were able to, I don't know if we could, but have bursaries for participants in the forum through the CDC, then that would be great.
Is that possible?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. That's we've got
Probably.
this set aside to support. And I believe that was the discussion with Francine, was that there'd be a donation and then there would be a participation.
Well, we were thinking of sending people to the conference.
Yeah.
And of course, it was because it was, I thought, going to be in person, but have we actually joined as a member, Steph?
Yes,
Okay, that's what the $300 is?
yes.
Well,
But
so,
we don't have any money here for the forum. For
so yes,
participation.
we got this $1,000 underneath. The REAP's annual registration, it should be annual membership.
I think, isn't that forum donation?
That's been
I don't
gifted.
think that's tied to registration.
No,
It's
that
not.
was just our contribution to organizing the actual forum. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so
So there's no money in here for training
well,
conferences.
we've only
not-
spent
nothing.
1,300 and we got 2,800 in the budget. So we've got more than enough money to pay for 10 registrations
Yes.
for the forum or something
Oh,
like that.
membership and support. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, the forum is coming up. It's like, just over a month. So we should decide how we're going to, if we can offer bursaries, we should decide how we're going to get this information out to people.
well, we need the
Um,
notice about the forum first.
Yeah, and I don't even think there is a finalized one yet. I can talk to Francine about that.
Well, once they've done their official notice of the forum, then we
Yeah.
can send that out to everybody on
Yeah.
our business list
Yeah.
and ask them to register. And then in the meantime, staff can just confirm with Kristen that offering a bursary to interested participants that can't afford to pay themselves. So that's what a bursary
Yeah,
is.
we'll have to see, what the cost is and
Yeah,
everything. We
yeah.
don't know that at this point.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're sort of waiting on them to get the official notice
Yeah.
and then we can disseminate it to everybody that's got a business license and
I think that's a really good use of those funds.
Yeah.
A really good, and like we were just talking about, in lack of a business association of our own, to support people being a part of a larger picture. It's valuable.
but we need the program, we need the notice
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Wait,
Have we only spent $314 in the implementation strategy step?
So that is the, that was the planning workshop where we came up with that implementation approach
Okay,
at Docs. And then this was the remote workers and great engagement at
Okay.
Docs. Yeah, so
so we've got lots of money for the
the housing discussion,
housing one, yeah.
which now it's going in my brain more. So a Monday would be a good day for that because a lot of the restaurants are closed on Monday. And
For me, it would depend on which Monday.
okay,
How long, Maureen and Alison, so pending the results of the election, how long is your current appointment valid?
Until the 7th of November.
November.
That's when the new council would be sworn in.
Right.
Yeah. If we're both reelected, then I would assume our appointment would carry on until we placed.
on the CDC, yes.
Okay. Well, we would lose Maureen, unfortunately.
Why?
A mayor can serve on the committee.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
nice.
but is that
Gary's on
likely?
all sorts of committees.
Whoa, that would be great if we had the mayor on our committee.
Gary's on lots of committees.
Okay, why don't we just plan on not doing too much more because we've, I think, covered off everything we've got the time and capacity to do. And if we end up with a surplus, we'll ask to carry it forward to next year.
Okay,
We don't want to try and squeeze in the industrial people engagement session this
Well,
year.
That's where we've got the Community Economic Development Plan Information Strategy Engagement events. We've
Okay.
got more than enough budget for that.
We will still try and get that done this fall.
the industrial, like, no, the housing, the businesses and
The
housing
housing,
engagement. We don't have
Um,
any shape for the industrial.
not yet. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
but if Rod wants to start working on it.
Okay. Are we good with the budget at the moment then,
Yep.
or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we do not have the province on the line? No,
No,
no province update. Jody, do you have a tourism Bowen Island update?
You're muted, Jody. There we go.
Hi. What to say?
how was your summer?
Busy.
Well, one of the biggest hurdles this summer was staffing. I hired my first staff person 2 months after I normally would have, so that was challenging. I tried to get volunteers, community ambassadors, but that didn't work either. So yeah, it was challenging that way. Our stats, I'm waiting on stats from BC Ferries with the breakout of the experience card, but still that hasn't happened. I'm a little nervous with the switch over at BC Ferries. The customers rep that I used to deal with was very good, and I don't know with this recent changeover if that will continue.
Jody,
Hello?
have you sent an email asking for that?
Oh yeah. No,
Okay.
I've
Send-
what?
Can you send me the email? And because the person that I know that is in charge of all the sort of statistical root analysis and all that sort of stuff, his department, I can maybe forward it on to him and see if I can get it any faster.
Sure, I can send that to you.
Jody, we also have a transportation advisory committee meeting next week.
Yeah.
We can, so the chair of the ferry advisory committee is on that and we can support you as well.
Well, I've had interactions with the replacement, the people that have replaced Darren. And I know the report breaking out is a specialty report, so it's not and I know BC Ferries has got staffing issues as well. So
Well, I
I'm-
can just find out from him
yeah,
how
sure.
difficult it is to produce
Yeah,
the report.
I can do that, but I'm saying how I used to always get it, you know, I'm just a little nervous with all the switchover that was recently, if it's going to be an improvement or not. Because of the reduced staffing, our numbers at the visitor center, I think we're down 9% over last year of who we interacted with.
Is that just because of reduced hours or reduced number of people to actually talk to?
That's our ability to capture people is based on
Body.
staffing. So if we if I can have somebody staff at the visitor center and somebody at the kiosk gets the most captured because it's right there. It helps with ferry marshaling, helps with washroom direction. I mean, it's just a really, but if I don't have a second staff person to do that, our numbers are always down. So I know there's been a lot of tension. I mean, tourism always gets blamed for everything. And I know a lot of frustration, people talking about the numbers going up, but I took videos on Saturday afternoons at 1:30 in the afternoon showing essentially just, streets that are deserted. So a lot of people get opinions, but that's why I always want to back it up with facts. And that's why before saying, oh, it's up this much or it's down this much, I really want the data to try to support that. And, the biggest issue from my perspective recently with traffic is the construction. The road, obviously, with one lane unloading caused a lot of frustration with people and delays. Also, the huge increase in commercial transport is causing delays on the ferry, but yet a lot of people just always want to blame visitors. Without a doubt, no matter where you go, the summer months are peak months for travel. Kids are out of school, people take vacation time, people come when it's nice. And that's the reality. Fewer people come to Bowen in the off season. And, at the visitor center and we're destination management and we're community economic development, and that's what we do. And but we can't control people that come. There's talk about promotions and Tourism Bowen Island doing promotions. And I'm sorry, people, we live in a digital world. Everybody that comes to Bowen, so many people are posting to Instagram, to Facebook. There's no way we can control that. So as I've been trying to advocate and work towards for a number of years now, is that it's very helpful if, from a destination management perspective, we're much more proactive than we currently are. So I think that's all I've got. If anybody's got any questions.
I've got one on the staffing. How many staff did you end up hiring in full-time equivalent?
I only had one person full-time equivalent. And then I had a university student that returned. She'd been working over the past 2 years much more frequently because of COVID, but because this year she was traveling, so she came back. And then I was able to get one high school student who was wonderful. So I want her to come back. It was just really, it was frustrating because I tried to be way more proactive this year than I ever was. I was doing reach out to colleges. My first people responding were international students. But you run up against the housing as well as the funding. And so, it was frustrating because I certainly tried harder than I ever have. And
So it wasn't, it was just a lack of people responding to the ads. requests that were had a Bowen knowledge and able to live here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had way fewer people responding. I had to pay way more money than, you know, to secure people than you know. So, yeah.
And the what used to be called the HRDC grants, which I can't remember their new name on. How many did we get? One of those? A government
summer
grant
student?
subsidized the
The-
wages?
The summer student grant, you mean? Like is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, no, exactly. So I got approved for 3 and I could only use 1 because, you know, in the past I have been able to use multiple, but this year, yeah, I could only use 1.
Thanks.
Is there a board meeting or AGMs or anything coming up?
For Tourism Bowen Island?
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got a board meeting in about a week and we'll have an AGM end of November, beginning of December.
Okay, thank you, Jody. That sounds like a very challenging summer. And I suspect some of that was also just because the ferries were so challenged, you know, I've never seen them so understaffed and cancellations and this thing and that thing. So I think that just all combined made it seem worse, you know? Yeah. Okay, do we have an update from the hearth?
Yes, we do. We had the same issues too with looking for staff. I didn't get very many applicants for the position of the cultural connector position. But we were lucky that we've got one that was unbelievable, and she's decided to stay on till the spring, which is a great benefit to us to have another staff person on hand. So we just got lucky, totally lucky. Yeah, there's a few things. The cultural corner update, the stage and the landscaping project that seems to have lasted all summer, which it still is. There's been challenges. There's been several challenges with that. But most of the landscaping has been done. The stage and the back yard covered seating is still not finished. We're hoping that they will start working again on that by the end of this week. And hopefully by the end of this month, it'll all be done. We were going to have a big party to launch the stage, but we've postponed that now until the spring. It's with the weather and all that, it just doesn't make sense. But hopefully you'll see the stage complete and maybe we'll start using it. Or I know that we're definitely going to use it at the Christmas light up. Santa, I think, is going to be sitting under the covered stage. So that'll be great if that happens, of course. I think, you know, Jody, you may have noticed a drop in numbers. We definitely did, people coming into the gallery. And I think the whole construction issue was part of that. I think people just stayed on the other side of the road where the sidewalk was, heading up the cove, and just didn't cross the road over to the hearth and to the tourist office, because our numbers are down for visitation in the gallery. And that's what I'm blaming it on, is that people just didn't go past that construction zone. An update to our cultural plan. Steph just requested that, and I can give you a quick update. So we have our cultural master plan that we are in partners with the Muni on. We did do an update in 2022. And those updates include support for younger voices, celebrating heritage, embracing diversity, and audio visual equipment. So we've set aside some funds for those 4 categories to do some work on. I am actually presenting at the council meeting tonight. So if you want more information, join us at that. What else? Oh, I know. So how do I say this? When I arrived on Bowen, I had the impression that the galleries felt that they were in competition with each other, that that everyone was doing their own thing, and because we're a nonprofit organization, we can receive funding. There maybe was a little bit of animosity towards us. Anyway, I wanted to nip that in the butt, so I got the people that work at the two other galleries, Catching Stars and Arts Specific, to meet this summer and see if we could start breaking down those barriers and start working together. And everyone was really keen. Everyone was really open to that idea. What we came up with was creating a brochure for a sort of self-guided gallery walk, which would include those three galleries. So we are now in the process of trying to find some funding to create that brochure. And I don't know if this committee can support that financially or not. I'm not sure exactly the cost. I'm going to say $5,000, but that's probably really high. But it would be really nice to support that, what the local art community is doing. So I don't know, please help me with that to try and find some funding to pay for that brochure and support our local arts. And yeah, other than that, we've got lots of things going on. Our usual gallery shows. There's a really great one in right now. It's called Still Life in Motion. You should probably come by in this week because it closes at the end of this week. I'm not going to tell you any more than that because you need to come and see it. It's pretty amazing. We are doing the December art market again this year for the month of December, basically. That's supporting our local artists and artisans, giving them an opportunity to sell their art that's more sort of Christmas gift based. Yeah, other than that, we're just rolling along.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Jamie, that's great. Regarding the funding help that you need, I don't know. I'm not sure what we can do there.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure the.
I mean, it's a great initiative. I'm glad. That's great that you did that. I don't know, Steph, any ideas?
Well, the budget that we have was approved by council already. So I think at this point, probably we need to ask council.
I'd have to go back and look. Jamie, you're only including Catching Stars and the gallery, the co-op up in Artisan Square?
Yeah, some of the prerequisites of being part of that initiative is that you have to be open, because we could support artist studios, but often they're not open. And the preference is that when someone comes to the island, that they can walk to the galleries and visit them, and they'll have regular hours. Also has to be original art, not mass-produced art. So I'm not sure who the other galleries could participate in this project. I'm not sure.
I guess I was just thinking about, I'm thinking of, I know the Salt Spring one and stuff, you've got to be open a certain number of hours and things like that. So have you asked the question to your membership of artists? Is there anybody that's open that many hours and wanting to be in the brochure?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I hesitate to open it up too wide, Alison, because then you're rejecting people, and I really don't like.
Not if they don't meet the criteria.
Yeah, they have to meet the criteria. Yes.
Yeah. So here's the criteria to be in here, and if you meet the criteria and you'd like to be in, let us know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can certainly do that. Is it
going to be an online brochure as well?
We were thinking about doing just a one-page website. Yeah, but then from there, it would lead to the actual websites of the businesses. So simple. And then a paper copy, a paper brochure that we would hand out. And Jody, of course, and other businesses.
Yeah, Jamie, I was just going to say that maybe you and I should have a little bit of conversation, and you can tell me a bit more, show me a bit more what you're thinking. And
Sure.
yeah.
We maybe start with the website one and go from there. I don't
Yeah,
know how many people are picking up paper stuff now.
people still do. Jody would probably attest to that, that they still pick up
Yeah.
maps and paper maps, things like that. Especially if it's a walking tour with a map on it.
But Alison, to your point, yeah, I mean, a good way to start would be a digital version, and then because the printing cost is going to probably be the most.
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe is it just going to be a wrap card? As
Yeah.
a yeah. Well,
Just a
then
digital.
those are not very expensive, actually. So
No.
yeah, because you have a wrap card and then it directs to the website.
Yes.
Yeah, that would probably make
Yeah.
the most sense. Yeah.
Does it have a buy local art emphasis?
Is that a question for me, Maureen?
Yeah.
Ask that again.
Does it have an emphasis? Does it have a marketing emphasis? Does it have a buy local art emphasis?
Would it fit in the buy local campaign?
Might.
Just
Might.
looking for yes here, Jamie.
Yes. Yes.
Because there is a few dollars there.
Oh, is there? Is there? Okay.
We didn't spend that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if buy local is no longer just the overall awareness, if it can have some sectoral focus and
It's
buy
three
local
specific
art.
businesses though, right? It's so
Well, they're not businesses. Well, one is.
One's a business, the other two are nonprofit. Yeah.
Mhm.
I got the community charter breathing down my neck here.
Well, that's part of why, just opening it up to the opportunity for others that might meet the criteria to be included.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can reach out to our local arts businesses.
And I know the Salt Spring one, for example,
Would it
they have different hours for the shoulder or the winter seasons than they do for the summer season. I think the summer season has to be 7 days a week. The winter season maybe more the weekends or something.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
councillors regarding community charter, do you feel like an open call might be the best way to address section 25 on that? Like,
I'm
not
thinking
just full
out loud.
invitations, but an open call, and then it's been fair.
I'm still sort of, I'm thinking out loud, but to me that would be a better way to do.
To
Yeah,
be
fit it
super
in.
clean on that.
Well, it's not, I think offering, being on the tour may encourage somebody to be open more hours.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on
Or
that.
what if the Catching Stars contributed something, and our committee contributed something to the nonprofit? Like let's say they were splitting it amongst the three of them, and so we were able to. So the nonprofits came to our committee to say, can we support, their role in that, whereas the business itself paid its third.
But there lies some of the problem, is that they are a little bit resentful because as a nonprofit, we can access funds.
Well, they can be a nonprofit if they want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
one
think-
thing that I'm trying to break down.
I guess that it would be helpful to get a quote on what a brochure might cost, because as I'm listening to the conversation, I'm also listening to additional work for Jamie. I mean, what Jamie put forward was, do we know of a source of funding here? But if she's having to navigate open calls and financial arrangements, that might just get a little on the complicated side. So I think explore options and see whether the work involved is worth it, given the actual cost of a RAT card, which I don't think would be very expensive at all.
No. I think that the initial work, once the initial work is done, it then is a lot easier to manage it, for sure. But yeah, like who owns the website, who keeps it updated, who keeps the brochures distributed? Yeah, you know, that all lands on somebody or one of the organizations.
Is this a step in the cultural master plan, an action that's in the cultural master plan?
Not this initiative.
So is there a broader action that it falls under?
Not that I could think of, Alison. I think it was just more of a one-off. It was more about trying to break down these barriers.
Jamie,
Great idea. And then also, yeah, I was just going to say, Jody, we could be part of the tourism for next year.
yeah, absolutely. But I was
Mhm.
just going to say, I don't think you need a website. You just need a web page.
Yeah, just a page. Yeah,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that
it's not that. It's
once,
not that
once
hard.
the actual content is done, that really doesn't take long to plunk up. And then each of the websites, because everybody, you've all got websites, just put it up, and then we would put it up too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but that's why I want to kind of talk to you exactly the vision of what maybe you're thinking that would, the components of that would be, like the
Yeah.
walk part and that kind of thing.
Sure, Jody. Let's have a chat. That's maybe my first step.
Yeah.
And then do I present to this group to see if there is some funding to cover some of the costs? Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do your sort of little more refined plan and then come back to this group to see.
Okay.
Because you
Yeah.
know, are we talking about $500 or, you know, how much is?
Okay,
page
I think we
on
need to, we need to get going. We're at the 2-hour mark here. Are we good with that though? Jamie, you
10:20.
can get a bit further back and then bring it back to committee, okay?
Yep, you bet.
Okay, so do we have a council update?
I think we did it, didn't we, in the item CEDC?
Yeah, more or less. We
Okay.
have action on Saturday.
Yeah. Exercise your democratic rights.
We have another council meeting on the 24th.
Yeah.
And that will be the last meeting of the 2018-2022 council.
Wow.
November 7th is set for the ceremonial swearing in program.
And we shall.
So, oh damn it, I can't remember what I was going to say. So
Okay.
I remembered. Everybody signed up to get the news and notices that, you know, Sophie sends out, or the communications department sends out the what's happening at BIM and the island plan. I mean, please go onto the website and sign up for that, because I think as the Economic Development Committee, we should probably all be getting that, you know, notice that says when council meetings are going to be held and what's going on with temporary use permits and permit
Yes.
applications and
I'm
all that.
signed up.
Okay. Gets notices of the council meetings and agendas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is a link to that sign up in the signature of my email. So if you ever hear people saying, I don't know what's going, they don't communicate anything, just forward my email, any email, a polite one, please. And the link is always there.
Okay, new business. I do want to talk about the reef. Do I say that right? It's the reef. No, it's the REAP Forum. It's a P on the end, right?
Right.
Yes, okay. So I had a chat with Francine last week, who is heading that up. And she is really interested in Bowen participating in their initiatives, in their organization. As it turns out, Rod is going to be stepping away from some of that. So I really do think there's huge value in Bowen being a part of this group of islands, trying to share information, and I do think it's valuable. But they are trying to expand their board as well, so they definitely want participation on the board from Bowen. So something that they're going to do, they're having the forum in November, as I mentioned. And then after that, they are going to establish an ongoing Facebook group amongst the islands so people can share ideas and conversation, that kind of thing, which is great. They're also going to establish an advisory committee. So they understand that the board meetings are a little bit more, budgets and things like that. And then they're going to have an advisory committee, which they also want representation on, which would talk about programming and more interesting, the interesting stuff, initiatives, that kind of thing. And it's, if ICE-T gets recapitalized, I think we talked about this before. If there is actually a money available through ICE-T, this organization is also going to really advocate for Bowen to be part of that, and could even end up being a hub, somewhat of a hub for grants and things that, go through ICE-T or stem from ICE-T's funding. So it's just my call to say I would love to see us really stay involved. We need representation on their board, and at least one person on the advisory committee. And Alison, I was wondering if you might be interested in being a board member, just because there is a lot of, they look at budgets and things like that. And
Yeah, and Vaughn, just before you say
yeah.
anything, Alison, I was going to say, just reflect on that. It's a very positive experience being a board member with REAP. And they are very organized. The next board meeting, which is tomorrow, is reviewing finances, and financials are in order, and they're receiving funding and keeping up all of the different diligence that they need to do to be able to access the new version of Western economic development and so on. So there's a lot going on there, and having someone who's experienced with board work and financials is probably a key thing, of course, for a board member there.
So a curiosity question, are they incorporated under the Societies Act?
We looked into this. The answer is yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So your board members get appointed or elected by the members at the AGM. When's their AGM?
Yes, it's on the 18th,
Yeah.
19th of November.
And just, I think the board and the membership, although it's of course open and they're actively recruiting for membership, the membership is not large at this point. And the board is very much, helping to create direction for the organization, and with the idea that, membership can expand. So it's a pretty dynamic in terms of the organization and where it's going at this point. And the people that are involved on the board, particularly Francine and some of the other economic development people like Julie Sperber from Gabriola, and from up in the northern area, they're just very committed economic development individuals, and so they've been really carrying a lot of the direction of the organization right now.
Well, I'm not going to answer yes or no at this point, so probably no.
Oh,
Time wise. But anyhow, I was just looking at their website and they appear to have redone it with, it looks better. The forum is on the website, the November 18th, 19th virtual event. So,
Well, the forum is on the 18th. Did you say the AGM is on the 18th?
no,
the
November the
AGM
18th.
is on the 19th.
Anyhow, they've got a notice up on the website about the forum. It says save the date, November 18th to 19th, 2022. Stay tuned, more info to come. So they haven't got anything else on there as to details as to agenda or timing or anything like that, or whether there's any fee. So that's,
I wonder.
Rod, are you doing the board meeting this week? Sorry, Maureen.
I was just going to say, I wonder if it makes sense to have this conversation
in November.
in November. If we can encourage a number of people
Yeah.
to participate in the forum, then and learn more about how things are operating, then you may have some willing board members, participants, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as iced tea is concerned, we heard something about it at UBCM, but I can't remember a lot of details. But I got the feeling the government wasn't keen because they had spent all their money rather than doing like the Columbia Basin Trust did and the Northern Trust did, and investing and spending the income. But,
I've been in, there's some correspondence that went forward to Ravi Callan in tonight's council meeting, but I've also kept in touch with Brody Guy, who is the new executive director for ICT.
yeah.
And where he is right now is that Minister Callan requested from ICT a new business plan, which Brody has provided. And he was expecting, about 2 weeks ago, he was expecting to be meeting with the minister and deputy minister to go over the business plan. So it is advancing within the system. And at the meeting that we had with Minister, his point was that he needed to see a business plan, a solid business plan, before they would consider the recapitalization. So as far as Brody's concerned, they now have a solid business plan, but we'll see what the minister thinks.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Rod, are you attending the board meeting tomorrow?
We've lost him.
Well, I'm on mute. Sorry here. Yeah, my plan was to attend the board meeting, which essentially is going to be just approving financials for the year end.
Okay, so then if
What about the agenda for the forum itself?
The forum committee is been meeting separately.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
But they're not going to sort of present the final. I mean,
I don't think that's on the agenda for that meeting.
so if the board AGM is on the 19th of November, then wouldn't we have to say prior to that who would be willing to stand for a nomination, I guess? I'm not sure how that process works, but.
Well, that's the other thing. We need to know how their whole process works.
Sorry, the board AGM is on November 19th and the forum is November 18 and 19.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what Francine told me. Yeah.
And they've got to advertise to their membership. So we're now a member, so we should get the official AGM notice.
Hmm.
And it's 14 days in the Societies Act, which you've got to allow for, getting the information there under there's rules in the Interpretation Act that apply. So usually you have to send the notice out earlier than 14 days. So,
Okay, so we should be getting it soon then.
so we would presumably get it around the end of October, but they've got to be planning for it at this board meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And is anybody on this committee interested in general, just right off the bat, wants to be either perhaps on the board or one of these advisory committee people? Because the advisory committee is going to meet every 2 months approximately, or 5 times a year. It's not a huge commitment. And Martin,
Yeah.
you're saying yes? Okay.
Yeah, definitely for the advisory.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. I think now sorry, Steph, you said you wanted to add something else in the new business.
The buy local. So there's just ideas. We're bored of what we've been doing. So any ideas welcome.
What's the timeline for it, Steph? When would we be putting out the buy local material?
Well, they have their launch. BC Loco does their launch. I think it's November 5th, but I haven't received anything from them yet this year. And their approach is 7 days, 7 ways. So they kick off the slow season with a way to support local. It's always the same, but they do something different with their digital collateral. Drink local, shop local, restaurant or whatever. We do so we do a 7-day run digitally from our end, and then that sort of kicks it off. And then we do a weekly, we do ads in the undercurrent.
Thank you.
We had some super fun with it. Like Robin Fenton was a part of coming up with some of the captions. And then we had a blast getting imagery to match the captions. And then sort of a couple of years later, there was all this great branding that happened around it. And then we just kind of did exactly the same thing. We just did almost exactly the same the next year. No one complained. I don't know if they're feeling abused or harassed by the repeated ads. And then, as I said, last year, the undercurrent did such a good job that we shelved it a little bit. And now, so yeah, help. Wake this thing up. We need to refresh.
Mm-hmm.
There's some staff changes happening with communications. So with a mat leave, so I don't have like tons of capacity for sitting around brainstorming, that kind of. So yeah, anybody have any ideas? Please share.
Okay.
So maybe rather than saying with mat leave, Hope's going on mat leave and Sophie will be taking her role. So it's not Sophie that's going on mat leave.
Yeah, Sophie will be taking over the corporate officer role, and she's normally the head of communications. So her assistant, I guess, helper will be taking over communications. So I just don't want to overwhelm her or dump a big project on her.
Are you going to find out what the undercurrent's doing too, right?
Yeah, I've got that as an action.
Okay.
I have, when we did our booklet, the support local booklet that came out last spring, there was a printing issue. So I got them to give us a whole bunch more. So I've got a ton of booklets. So those could be just part of distributed again to locals.
Can we have some of those? Do we already have some up at the Hall?
Probably not. I can't remember if I dropped any off.
And there's a digital version.
We have the digital version, but we also have the physical version, which I'm not sure, part of a little bit of the budget could go for when the undercurrent's doing something, put it in again, like the drop kind of thing again, or a mail drop or something. So we already have that collateral that could be distributed and would fit really well. I know a lot of people saw it, but I also know locals that didn't see it. So I can offer that up.
Thank you. That's great.
So can you look in the chat, please?
Yeah,
Thanks.
I had.
Okay. Any more ideas? We can always fire them off about buy local, right? Just to you directly. Okay, all right. Excellent. So I think we should wind it up. I was going to put one more thing on, but I'm not going to now because we're getting too late. So anybody else, or we can go now? Okay, then let's adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.